I'm the owner of Amy's Roofing and Solar. So I'm like a contractor representative, I guess.
Very good. Let's see, BC, you're next in the alphabet.
Hello, everyone. I'm BC Caps with the Sonoma County Regional Climate Protection Authority.
Very good. And Jane.
Good evening, Jane Elias. I guess with a few hats. I sit on RCPA's Community Climate Action Committee representing City of Cloverdale, and work for the County of Sonoma as the Energy and Sustainability Manager within the Climate Action and Resiliency Division.
Very good. And then we've got all you folks at the end of the alphabet, RST. Ross, you're up.
Hello, Ross Glendenon, RCPA.
Very good. Steve.
Hi, Steve Pierce, and I help out with the Sebastopol Climate Action Committee from the city of Sebastopol.
Very good. And Tanya.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tanya Narath with the RCPA.
Lovely. Thank you, everyone. And did we have anybody else join? This is all I see on my screen, but am I missing?
Paul and Shelley already?
Oh, okay. No, I didn't, because I did not see Shelley. Hi, Shelley. Are you off video?
Yeah.
Yes. Ah, that explains it.
Yeah.
All
In the
right.
chat, she said she was here to listen. So.
Okay, great. Would you like to introduce yourself? You don't have to. Okay, hearing nothing, I guess we will proceed. BC, would you like to bring the agenda back up?
Absolutely.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we have dispense with agenda item number 1. We're moving rapidly, folks. And you have the rest of the agenda up. Does anybody have a topic they would like to add? Okay, check. 2 down, 5 items to go. Adjournment doesn't count, so we're really making great progress. All right, moved on to outreach opportunities, one of our 2 meatier topics this evening. So which organizations are still missing from the committee, and how should we get their input? And I have kind of a subheading that I've added mentally to this topic, which is what viewpoints or constituencies will be needed for this measure, whatever it is, to be successful. So love to hear thoughts on this. And I think there were so few of us, I think we can speak fairly spontaneously. So, feel free to unmute and offer some thoughts as they arise.
Hey, Ann, I'd like to jump in here really quick at the start and maybe just set, I want to share, I'm going to switch and I want to share another document.
Okay.
So just as a little bit of a background, so we have been attempting in an ongoing capacity to kind of work with a larger diversity of groups, social equity specifically, and kind of thinking about disadvantaged communities. As you pointed out, there are a number of other constituencies that we need to be aware of and think about communications with. I had recently gone through, or RCPA about 1.5 years ago produced and adopted a document, our climate mobilization strategy. And in that document, there's a list of a number of suggested stakeholder groups that could play a role in implementation of that strategy. And I thought that might be, I copied and pasted, I have that list handy to share, that I thought that might be, and if this worked, you should that should have switched my shared screen, hopefully, to see that.
Yes.
So what I wanted to just kind of to point out is this list here is a list of a starting list that we can add to and take notes onto, and add on to this. So.
Great. That's really helpful. And should we add the folks who are already here on this committee so we get a fuller picture? So we had Amy and Steve.
So we could add like solar industry, solar.
So
Right.
Amy would like to categorize her organization, and then Steve, maybe the Sebastopol Climate Action Commission. Would that be the?
Sure, that's
organization
fine.
For individual.
And I'd also think about adding MTC.
And MTC is on our list for the other committees, specifically
Oh.
around transportation. I will certainly add them here, even though they are on this list further down for kind of on that transportation angle.
Okay, and you could probably add Petaluma Climate Action Commission, since I chair that body, and Panama's the vice chair. And of course, he also represents the Building Decarbonization Coalition, which is the NGO sector.
Are contractor groups listed below? Oh, there we
Yeah,
go.
number on line 15, it says, yeah, I was gonna say, I'm not sure, it would need to be listed separately, but
And I think if there are organizations that we can name specifically, I think that would help, because one of the things we'd like to do is make a plan for the groups that we feel are important to either reach out to or try and encourage to attend these meetings. So the more specific names we have, I think the better. Then we can actually do some targeted outreach.
Yeah, so the now why can I never remember the name of this? The North Bay
Builders.
Builders Exchange. That's it.
Oh.
North Coast Builders Exchange.
Yeah,
Thank
North
you.
Coast Builders Exchange.
Yeah.
And if I can just jump in briefly, many of these organizations have been on our mailing list, but I think now it's kind of about finding some of the more direct connections, to really reach out to people, because we've certainly sent them a lot of things that, maybe didn't get past the inbox or going to the main email. So it's,
Yeah.
I think, the more individual we can get, the better.
Yeah, good point. So finding people who are individuals within those organizations could be really helpful.
Mhm.
What about the union? There's, what would it be? Pipe fitters union or carpenters union?
The electrical workers,
There you go.
what is it? See, I'm having one of those nights.
IBEW.
Thank you. Yes. They've generally been pretty progressive on climate and electrification stuff, so that they're likely to be more helpful, say, than some of them.
How about the North Bay Realtors Association?
Yeah. And what about both Sonoma State and the JC, Santa Rosa JC, since we're interested in education? In terms of line 17, Los Cien, I understand, is one group. And North Bay Organizing Project.
Mhm.
And I know almost every community in the county has some sort of climate committee
Mhm.
or group. And also, what about local Sierra Club chapters?
Mhm.
Yeah, or a USGBC chapter.
Yeah,
Mm, mhm.
I was just going there next, Jane.
What was the one just before that? I didn't, Sierra Club.
Club.
Yeah, Sierra Club, right. And I know CSI has done some events where they have had some focus on progressive building practices.
Rebuilding together might be a good one.
Oh,
Mm.
yeah, good thought. And Habitat, perhaps.
North Bay Electric
Is
Auto
Habitat for
Association.
Hu- is Habitat
Oh,
for
yeah.
Humanity still doing houses around here? I thought they I thought they had stopped.
Yeah, it's funny, they're still sending out mailers, though.
Hmm.
Oh,
I just got something from them, I don't know, a week ago.
Who, Habitat?
Yeah,
the career technical education.
Yeah, there's another, there's something called Next Gen Trades. It's a nonprofit and they train students to become tradespeople.
oh, that sounds promising.
What is CASA? Are they still happening?
Casa Grande?
No, CASA deals with building. What's the acronym? Let me look it up.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Amy, are there any solar organizations in the county?
Well, CALSA is the sort of the lobbying group and they're not in the they're like California. So I don't know if that's, but they are, I mean, there's local, Santa Rosa is where the office is. So
Oh, yeah, well, then that's probably worthwhile.
it's CALSSA, California Solar and Storage Association.
Right, they just rebranded
Yeah,
recently, right?
yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
And-
There is
Okay.
Hey,
a
Ann, a minute
building-
ago, you mentioned CSI, and I didn't get that.
Oh, yeah, Construction Specifications Institute.
Thank you.
Sorry, Amy, did you have another one?
Oh, well, I was just thinking about, so, part of our business is we install solar, but another part of it is that we have a product company and I'm wondering if there's other entrepreneurs around that in Sonoma County that are making sort of green building products.
Jane, maybe you know something about that.
Or developers like who what is his name, Brad Baker, that does SOMO, like developers that are really like
Mm.
thoughtful about the way that they develop land.
Good thought. And actually, maybe some of the manufacturers whose products are represented at the Advanced Energy Center, although they probably aren't local.
No, I don't think any of them are local.
Yeah.
But green product manufacturers, I know in Windsor, there's the bamboo.
Oh.
Oh, right, Bamcor.
Bamcor.
Mhm,
Thank you.
mhm.
Yeah, good thought.
There's also an organization for the building department officials in the North Bay. I don't know
Oh,
the
right.
official name of it.
That's
Redwood
brilliant.
Empire.
Yeah.
Redwood Empire Association of Code Officials.
There you go.
That's genius. Yeah. And AHJs in general, I'd say.
Right.
Uh,
That would be important to have their buy-in.
Redwood Empire Remodelers Association.
Mm.
I missed one just before that.
I said AHJs in general.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And BC, it's Redwood Empire Remodelers.
Thank you.
RERA.
So many acronyms.
Is there still an American Institute of Architects chapter in Sonoma County?
Yes.
That might be a good.
Yeah.
As far as manufacturers, I mean, do you want to include oh my God, it's late. I can Enphase.
Oh, sure. That's a good idea.
There's also more environmental groups like SoCo Can, Rahus Institute, and then let's see. I'm sure there's quite a few that I'm just not thinking of. And next door can also be something if we're trying to get like join this effort, then
Mm.
There's something
Yes.
called Relief Petaluma, which if our main goal is decarbonization, then planting trees is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, that's probably for the nature and
The land and water.
land and water. That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, and then I'm thinking like Applied Building Science, which is another contracting organization. And then there are some other kind of energy type geeks in the area. I'm thinking like Hybrid Home Performance. It's another one.
do they do the HERS test? Is that there is a group around that does that. And
Yeah.
then 24 consultants for that matter too are generally energy geeks. And
Right.
there's
Yeah,
we-
go ahead. I was gonna say as a group, yeah, the Title 24 consultants, so certified energy plans examiners, certified energy analysts, I guess they're all nowadays. Sorry, somebody else was starting to say something.
Oh, I was just wondering if we put Advanced Energy Center up there, or if that's
I have Sonoma Clean Power as
Okay.
kind of a parent org.
okay.
Mhm. That's a long list. We're doing very well.
Yeah.
But my goodness, that's many people who are not on our committee. But it definitely gives some ideas about recruitment.
And I don't know what's the best. I think there's opportunities both for recruitment of active participation in this committee, as well as there's just, I think, thinking about when we have materials to share
Mhm.
that we want specific feedback on. I think a lot of these groups may be appropriate for in that realm where
Right.
they may not
Right.
be, they're not necessarily going to participate on a regular basis.
Maybe
Yeah.
like the Black Chamber of Commerce. Is there like a Spanish speaking Chamber of Commerce?
Yep, there's a
Yes.
Hispanic chamber.
Good thoughts. Yeah, I
There's def-
wonder,
Go
would it
ahead.
make sense to try and find better emails, like not the info at, but specific emails for each of these, and maybe send a tailored email to them, sort of announcing what's happening and inviting them to attend a meeting, or maybe even having a 2-question survey that says, would you like to attend a meeting, or would you like to be consulted when we're developing ideas, or I don't know, something like that. What do you guys think?
I think an invitation might be nice. So I'm thinking just because it's last on the list, Black Chamber of Commerce, I'm sure there's like plenty of contractors in there that, we can sort of, or, other people that might be on this list in another way, that would appreciate an invitation to be a part of this decision-making and sort of research effort.
Is there any Native American group associated with the Grayton Center? Or...
Well, there's certainly the tribal organizations themselves
Uh-huh.
that we have spoken to in the past. I mean, I have pretty specific people that we could talk to there.
Oh, great.
They're some of these organizations are pretty small, and so you know, occasionally it's just a bandwidth issue, but
Sure.
certainly some of the larger ones, like Grayton. Yeah, I do have good contacts for the tribal groups in Sonoma County.
Excellent.
That's great.
There's definitely interest from faith communities too.
Oh,
And, you know, it's not
Mm.
like an overall organization. I'm not quite sure
mhm.
how to contact them.
Right. Yeah. So, well, for example, Cool Petaluma, which Deb, of course, represents, has some very good connections with faith-based communities in Petaluma. And it may be that, you know, some of our contacts in other communities likewise have those connections.
Is Cool Petaluma on there? That should probably be on there, right?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it sort of is in the sense that Deb has been attending these meetings, but since she's not here tonight, we didn't capture
Mhm.
that. So good. Good
And
catch.
every city has their own Chamber of Commerce and Kiwanis and probably some
Rotary.
Rotary, exactly.
Yeah. So I guess what do they call those sort of civic organizations?
Yeah.
What about Burbank Housing?
Oh, yeah. Actually, we've got Eden Housing here in Petaluma too, and there might be one or two others. Maybe, yeah, we need another other affordable housing developers slash operators.
There were also civic organizations
Yeah,
and local Chamber of Commerces.
thank you. I want to lose track of that one. So I am wondering if maybe we should have this list open, or BC, if you keep it open, and what do you guys think about moving on to our next topic? I think the wheels are probably going to keep spinning for a while on some of this. So
Yeah, I think if there's any other ideas that pop into people's minds, just shoot them out and I will add them to the list in the background. And then
Great.
my thoughts on this is I think this list now, Ross, Tanya, and I need to put our thinking caps together and do some grouping. A number of these organizations are already involved or have been contacted in some way. And then there's a lot of great ideas here where we'll need to prioritize, figure out what's a direct invitation, what's an invite, what's information sent. So
Well, and also I imagine some of these are going to be equally relevant across all three of our committees. And so sort of, you know, giving them a choice of, you know, where they might like to participate.
Mhm.
And I'm going to also suggest, as those ideas pop, why don't we have folks drop them into the chat? That way we can sort of keep a flow with our next topic. And that topic, I believe, is our project list, right?
yes.
So do you want to bring that up now?
Yes.
Or would
and
you
I guess
rather?
I guess maybe again, I wanted to, before I do, wanted to maybe explain a little bit of what I've been working on in the last couple of weeks. So then everyone knows as you see these documents. So this committee in the first meeting did a large brainstorming exercise around potential projects that fit within the building kind of decarbonization effort. And then went through and kind of grouped those. I took those groupings, and if we've continued behind the scenes, continue to kind of play with those lists and start to group them a bit. And so we're starting to get now to where we have a raw project list. We have a grouping of kind of a little bit more refined, what I'm calling a program list. And then the third document that I have available to share tonight is our even further condensed list, which are some key phrases that I'm putting on PowerPoint slides to use for our meeting, our public workshop next Wednesday on the 19th. So I just wanted to, so we have all three of those, and the first one I'll go to here, if this switched. So this should be, I believe, what I'm calling our current program list. So actually, Anne, I'm not sure how you wanted to navigate this conversation or what you had in mind. So please,
Yeah, actually, I was just pondering that here, BC, and I'm wondering if it might actually not be more helpful to do the slides first, since those are sort of the most boiled down and condensed version of this. I think that might give a little better orientation.
Very good. So let me switch to that tab, and okay.
There we are.
Okay, so what I have here, and these are very draft slides. We may completely change the design. There's going to be some more introductory slides that'll go with this, but maybe I should run through these very briefly.
Please do.
This is my take on the condensed version of all the work that the committee has done over the last couple of months. So in general, and these are the slides. So as part of the public workshop, we wanted to, and I'm kind of thinking that this would be Panama and Anne kind of presenting on these slides to present the work of the committee. First, the fact that the building committee has been meeting. We're really talking about building electrification and resilience improvements. And that in the groupings I've come up with, that we have three major areas of focus that have been identified. One is working on comprehensive upgrades for existing buildings. The second is installing electric vehicle charging infrastructure. And the third is supporting local government efforts for both of those efforts for the building improvements and for electric vehicles. Zooming then and zooming into that first one on comprehensive upgrades and comprehensive upgrades for existing buildings, there seems to have been kind of three themes or three trends that I'm seeing. Actually, here, before I go on, Steve, do you want to jump in?
Well, I just wondered if we wanted to kind of take comments as we're going through, or go through your whole presentation. Which would you rather do?
Let me do, there's these 4 slides. Let me run through them
Okay.
really quick, and then let's open it up, because I think then we can talk about kind of the whole package and make sure this is what the committee is wants to present itself.
Yeah, and I also think it would be helpful for us to, Steve, to dive into the next level of detail first, because a lot of your comments may be like, hey, this is missing. And it's like, in fact, it may not be missing in our longer list, but perhaps we haven't captured it adequately in the boiled up. So that'll be a really good thing to understand if that's the case.
So then zooming in on our first category of comprehensive upgrades for existing buildings, we've been talking about the need to do kind of 3 sets of interrelated kind of building upgrades. One is electrification. So we're looking at electrification plus efficiency plus resilience with building upgrades, building retrofits. Second aspect of that is we're looking to do this, accomplish this for all residential, all commercial, and all municipal buildings. That pretty much covers most of the buildings that exist. And the third aspect of this work is that we want to build in equity programs for low-income residents and renters. Those would be potentially extra incentives and or other protections kind of to keep people, to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to kind of see these benefits. The second major category is the installation of electric vehicle charging infrastructure. Here we've identified that this needs to be focused near multifamily residential housing. There's a great potential for the integration of vehicle to grid chargings for backup power, thinking about the way that the technology plugs in, really bringing this in connection with that first set of building upgrades. And then the second here is talking about methods of low cost installation that could result in wider coverage. Some of the ideas around there have been suggestions around looking at street pole mounted electric EV chargers or things like that that can be really integrated into kind of existing city infrastructure without the need for complete redesign. And then the third section of efforts is really around supporting local government in their direct efforts to do these things, as well as support for the local greater community. So third, we're looking at potential to create community resilience centers for emergency services, looking at bolstering or upgrading critical facilities with microgrid backup systems. And the third is developing electric vehicle charging strategic plans, which would help guide where a lot of those EV installations should happen. So those are just very brief examples of that I've culled from those much longer lists to give an example of kind of some of the things that we're talking about. I just realized there's one last aspect. We've also talked about the need to do public education, work on some workforce training, specifically with the building industry, and also continue to build in and integrate kind of social equity commitments and guardrails into all that. Those are parked elsewhere on this list, but I don't want to forget them, or I wanted to make sure to mention them, that those are kind of in my thinking as well. But for buildings specific, kind of it's these 4 slides. So with
Great.
that, let me
See if I could add maybe one other
Please.
comment in terms of how we envision using these slides during the workshop next week, is that we would like to do some Zoom polling to allow the attendees to give feedback to help prioritize. So there may be a need to list a few more options or examples or ideas that folks could react to or help prioritize. So that was the other piece of what we were wanting to do with the slide deck, is to set up that polling so we can get some additional feedback from the attendees.
I think that would be great, Tanya. And it's probably worth thinking about whether we might even add a little bit more color to these, not maybe necessarily getting them too cluttered, but maybe have half dozen items on each slide and poll sort of like pick your top 2 or something like that. Okay, well, I think this is a great segue to the longer list. So let's take a look at that, and maybe we'll look at them first. Let's do a quick run through of what the 6 big blocks are on that page, just for orientation purposes. And then maybe look at each of those blocks one at a time. So here are the first 3 blocks. As you can see, these roughly correspond to the 3 slides that BC showed. So first of all, the upgrades chunk, the EV chunk, and the local government chunk. And then BC, if you can scroll down to the next. So here's our other 3 chunks: public education, workforce education, and equity.
So quick question on the
Yeah.
slides that you were showing, BC, and
Yes.
then looking at this list. So in building upgrades, there's a number of categories I know that have been thrown on this list around rebates or incentives or financing, whether that's promotion of existing or coming up with some additional. And I didn't see any of that on the slide deck. I don't know if some of that's implied right now, but and the other one was, I noticed on the, and I know they're very draft, but the one slide where you have it mentions residential, commercial, and municipal buildings. And again, I know it's implied because it fits within a category, but I think for the public, multifamily should probably be put in there. I know it's in the next slide deck, but that's around EV charging at multifamily buildings. But I think as far as upgrades for multifamily.
So yes, I think I was implying multifamily as being part of residential. but very, yeah, for the purposes of communication, very
Yeah.
much should call it out. You'll also see, I was working in sets of 3 as a convenient way to give myself a hard line to basically cut, or else I could have ended up producing lists that were 12, 15, 30 items. So on a lot of these things, yes. So everything right now is done in groups of 3. It certainly does not need to stay that way for these slides or for any later.
So BC, for ease of reviewing each of these categories a little more depth, could you take, say, column A, make it wider so that we can see all of the lines in that category at once? And then do the thing where you can make them all fit. Well, you can also get rid of the extra. No, you can't. So this way this is organized, yeah. Because of the other columns, drat.
Give me just 1 second, I'll get it.
Okay.
If my web browser doesn't crash on me,
all right.
because I now have the spinning wheel. So, oh no.
Okay, meanwhile, we can certainly be scanning these top number of lines here, 9 through 15.
Sorry, I'll be right back.
Got a little bit of a lag there.
It's come on, computer.
Working
We can all-
hard.
Yeah, right. We can all file our nails now. Ta-da!
I
Excellent.
think you got it.
Very good. Okay, so yeah, why don't you guys take a minute to scan this list, and I think we're interested in what's missing, but also I did a scan earlier and did some consolidating. And so if you also see some consolidation opportunities too, whereby sort of saying, do this and this and where they kind of go together, that might also just facilitate our communicating these ideas on the 19th. So feel free to suggest those types of refinements as well.
Not seeing any lines about incentives for battery storage. Maybe I'm just missing it.
Well, we do have, for example, oh yeah, line 12. We've got battery backup for
Okay.
critical facilities.
Yeah, I was not necessarily thinking of just critical facilities, but just battery storage in general.
So at the individual building level, or, yeah, I
Yes,
think,
building and neighborhood.
yeah.
I know neighborhood was in the third column there.
Yeah, I
Right.
think I did a little, I think, mental pruning there, because from strictly speaking, from a climate perspective, batteries, say in individual residences, don't make a ton of sense because they actually increase energy usage. So
Yet all of the rates are now heavily incentivizing battery storage.
well,
it's
yeah, I mean, with
gonna be part of
solar,
the equation. Yeah.
yeah, so it's a tricky one.
I think
But
it's also
yeah.
very important public perception wise. People are afraid of giving up their natural gas because they don't know what to do if the power goes out. And integrated battery backup storage systems helps alleviate that anxiety.
It does. I would put it in, but I guess I'd put a big question mark by it, because there are also real equity considerations. You know, batteries are also, you know, I went through this conversation with a number of people recently. It's like, okay, well, how many hours have you actually lost power? You know, how many incidents of power loss have you experienced? And it tends to be pretty small numbers. So there are arguably better solutions. So I think it belongs on the list for consideration, but it's, at least for me, it's not a slam dunk.
Yeah, and I wonder if there's some, and I'm hesitating a bit because it's not necessarily under local government control, but maybe this is where the idea of microgrids and resilience centers comes in, that we have a program that,
Yes.
you know, increases the resilience of our energy, of our electricity grid, and, you know, battery backup, solar with battery backup might be a piece of that, but it's focus more on strengthening the electricity grid, which then addresses people's concern about not having enough electricity to charge their cars, or, you know, the variety of concerns that come up. So that could be a way of including something about that without being as specific, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's much more appropriate to think about it at sort of the larger scales and benefiting larger groups of people, as opposed to individual residences, which also tends to be more, you know, affluent people own their own homes, and, you know, who are we really benefiting? You know, maybe again, it should be multifamily housing, which tends to not have cooling, and where extreme heat is a big issue. You know, so then it becomes important. Well, if they don't have cooling, keeping the power on when it's too hot isn't going to do much for them. But it's, yeah, maybe it's installing cooling and battery backup. So
I just want to interject too about, like, is utility scale storage a thing that this group would consider? Because there's I mean, you guys probably, a few of you know Julie Royce. She actually works for a startup company here in Petaluma, and it's like an organic battery, but it's for utility scale. It's not for residential.
oh, that's very interesting. It's hard to imagine getting into utility scale, but again, community scale or neighborhood scale, I think for sure. You know, that's again why we've got resiliency centers in there and critical facilities. Resiliency centers, of course, would be a critical facility. So yeah, and microgrids, you know, there are definitely significant hurdles to this. There's been apparently some recent movement on legislation anyway, to try and bring forward the microgrid opportunity in California, which has been stalled for quite a long time. Sure would be great to see that moved forward.
And there's community solar legislation that passed recently, mainly directed to the utilities, but Sonoma Clean Power, I think, could take advantage of that same legislation and do something here locally.
Yeah, boy, I'd love to see that. We tried, by the way, I tried to get somebody from Sonoma Clean Power on this committee and failed. So, and I think Suzanne tried to, and I guess their bandwidth is just
They're
not
pretty busy. Yeah.
Yeah.
We are in communication with them though, and they have offered direct input on several occasions that has been integrated in this list. So want
Yeah.
to make sure that we're not considering Sonoma Clean Power a complete no-show.
Right. Yeah. They're not silent.
Yeah.
So that's really good.
Yeah. And I apologize about the sharing. My web browser is completely locked up. So
Is it Kerflooey?
I'm working to get the document back as soon as I can.
Okay. I might be able to try if you want to give me control.
I believe you should have it.
It says host disabled screen sharing.
Try it now.
Okay, marvelous.
And then that
Right.
will give me a chance to just reset my web browser and bring it back
Okay, so it looks like that some of the changes that you were making didn't really take, but I can give it a try too, and we'll see if it blows up again. That'll be amusing.
And you have more tabs open than I do.
Oh, it's frightening. I actually started to try and clean it up earlier today, and I was like, ugh. Let's see, we're gonna hide you. Hide. Okay, here we go. All right, y'all see that?
Mhm.
About the possibility of any kind of bulk purchasing to
Mm,
drive down costs in terms of water heaters and heat
great.
pumps.
Good one.
I don't have anything to add, but I don't know who added that line 23 additional funding for buying down the interest rate of PACE program. I think that's brilliant. I just wanted to say that.
Was that one of Sonoma Clean Powers?
It's,
Yes. Yes, I believe so.
Oh, really?
Since we have Jane on the line, I don't know if
I think
you
that
have any
was,
you have any perspective on that one.
no, I think that was added in with the meeting that was with Sonoma Clean Power and Climate Action Resiliency, and I can't remember. I want to say Chris possibly threw that in there, but yeah, it was the last meeting we had. Was
Mhm.
that 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I just know like a lot of
Alright.
my customers are interested in it, but a 7% interest rate is kind of high. I mean, now it's pretty average, but like that's a lot of times the thing that they point to because it's such a great,
Mhm.
it's such a great program that buying it down, like if it was less than what you could get a loan for, you know, through Redwood Credit Union or something, it would be
Mhm.
amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have any kind of subsidy or subsidy, I guess, of permit fees.
Yeah. Permit fees, but also making sure that the AHJs are on board with whatever it is that we're trying to encourage people to do. You know, if there's some way that they can make it easy, you know, to get permits. I know they're working on making solar permits easier to get, but
Yeah. Ye-
being really clear about what the requirements are for certain things so that it's just, you know, easy to bring people in and out. And yeah.
Yeah, there's work on that going on at the state level too. So that's something we might not need to do if it's being acted on adequately at a higher level, but yeah, definitely an issue. And you know, another one, this is kind of a personal challenge of mine, is improving somehow. Is there maybe this is a local jurisdiction one? We'll go to another column. But improving the communication between the AHJs and PG&E and Sonoma Clean Power about the condition of the distribution system and, you know, how that's affecting electrification.
Yeah.
Because the right hand does not know what the left hand is doing, let alone the left foot or the right foot. Really challenging.
That's true. Yeah.
So shall we move on to the next column, or maybe if we just keep scrolling down, that's easier at the moment. So this is the public education component here. And how are we doing? Okay, so we're doing well. It's not quite 8. This one's a lot shorter, so you can read through it faster. Love to hear any thoughts about missing elements here.
I would add something about publicizing successes or something like
Mhm.
you know,
Stories of people who have done the
yeah,
work.
yeah. Like just bringing all sorts of awareness to people about like what they can do, you know,
Mm-hmm.
by example, maybe.
Great. Anything else, or shall we move on to some of these other, our big chunks? Okay, I'll take that as a yes, move on.
Is it something that like should be brought into schools?
Uh,
Yeah.
That might be an easy access to families anyway.
Mm.
mm-hmm. So shall we call that K-12?
Yeah.
Good thought. Okay, so let's try. Let's do hide this one. We can move over here. Hide. Come on.
Mhm.
There we go. Yeah, this one was fairly short too.
I have a kind of general comment about this category. It struck me reading this that so much of it is transportation related if we're talking about any kind of infrastructure beyond the home. And there's definitely some overlap between our groups, but when I looked at the transportation programs, they pretty much left electric vehicles completely off the map. And
Huh.
I think there's a real equity component on electric vehicles, not just the charging, but the availability and accessibility. There's real need for electric car sharing, and we need infrastructure that's public and affordable. So so much of this to me belongs over in the transportation group. I know that the people that are more involved with that are more transit and bike oriented. I get it, but just struck me as a little bit of a mischaracterizing this as a building.
That's really interesting, Steve, because I was kind of assuming that our lens was sort of EVs in relation to buildings specifically. Like if you're building or retrofitting a building, it should have EV infrastructure or nearby. But it's really interesting that you say they've sort of overstepped that completely. So I'm really glad you brought that to our attention. And totally agree with you. I love this idea of I added electric car and bike sharing options. Or let's see, we'll just say electric and electric car, bike, let's see, and other e-mobility options.
Mhm.
Which I think they are covering. Well, maybe they're not covering e-mobility. When I
I
looked
think
at their
they do have
slide,
it in their list.
they do.
Well, better have it twice than none.
Yeah, it just, it kind of strikes me if we're doing public slides and we're calling this a building thing.
Maybe-
There's a real component that needs to be in the transportation end of equitable electric car infrastructure.
Yeah, and let's see, located in key equity locations. How's that?
Mhm.
Oh, and I just lost a little one of my E's in electric here. Okay.
I had
Yeah,
a,
BC, I'm sorry to interrupt. I think in the last transportation committee meeting, if I'm remembering correctly, there was someone who I think was new to the committee and was curious why there was nothing about EVs in that committee. So I think people tend to think about this as being transportation. And so it may be that at some point we want to merge this, or we want to communicate the charging piece of it, but.
Yeah.
Yep.
I wonder if another part of this is helping with purchase options too, sort of favorable financing for low income.
And there are programs that are out there now, PG&E programs, scrap your old gas car, a lot of
Right.
incentives that are there that need to be publicized. Most people are unaware of them.
Mhm.
I had a similar thought about the electric vehicles, but I think if we think of it as an infrastructure, it is more buildings. But if you think of it as electric vehicles, then it is more.
Yeah, but if it's out on the street, not so much a building thing, yeah.
Yeah.
And in terms of the light poles have been found to not work too well just because of the voltage, but you could maybe put light poles / power poles, because that is a much more promising territory for getting adequate power.
Okay. Street. Yeah.
I guess I'm
Yeah.
a little unclear about the whole street light power poles, since those are generally located on corners or not necessarily in really convenient places. If people are gonna have a cord that's gonna, I don't know. I'm not real familiar with this concept, and I know it's.
Hey Jane,
Yeah.
I'll jump in really quick. The designs I've seen, it's a mountable unit that looks like a standard level 2 EV charger with 2 heads that come off, but the whole thing gets bolted onto a light pole or into a power pole and hardwired into the electricity that's there.
Yeah.
But it actually functions like a detachable head level 2 charger that you would find as a standard that you'd find, say, out at the La Plaza parking lot.
But it's gonna have a cord attached, right?
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to have a cord with enough length. I'm getting into minutia here. I don't know. Infrastructure wise, my thought around this was, why not? And I know it's going to require a lot more infrastructure and having to run it underground, but why not attach something like that to parking meters instead? Because then you're not pulling these cords all over the place and tripping hazards and everything else. I mean, I can see this as being a real ADA issue and potential litigation for cities and jurisdictions that are going to have cords all over the place from cars. I know.
There are some options there. There are some nice 120 volt that can work for a lot of people that only cost $400, and you provide your own cord and plug it in. And yeah, I think we don't want to get lost in the weeds. So
I think one thing I'd like to see is to move this language about low cost to the beginning of this statement, because one of the biggest issues is that the commercial providers of EV chargers are charging a retail rate that is about the same cost as buying gas for an ICE vehicle. So I think one of the missing components is, how do we make this more affordable? And one of the things I've been thinking about is whether municipalities could, own these things and charge it at the rate that they get from the utility, instead of having them, somehow be privately, private companies being profiting from these. So
I have another idea that's basically, so we have an EV and we went, we've taken lots of road trips, and when you're in a place that doesn't have a lot of superchargers, then you have to like look for just local little places. And so there are apps that have local charging stations, and we actually have one at our house. So like if somebody wanted to come charge, they could come charge here. So it may be, I mean, it's just a thought that I haven't really thought through, but like, incentivizing people to have those around. I don't know what the monetary situation with that is. Like, we don't, like, ours is just there, like nobody pays for it, but we have solar, so it's free.
Mhm. Yeah.
There is a group out there that does that, where you can
Oh.
make reservations at your neighborhood or your neighbor's charger.
Oh,
They
yeah.
get compensated.
Yeah.
Um, well, I feel like this is a better list. So let's move down here to the workforce education. Another short list so far. So I bet we're going to come up with some more good ideas.
This is sort of a mix of 33 and 35, but like offering some kind of training for contractors for what's out there. Is that kind of what, maybe that's what they're saying?
Yeah, I think that's basically what 3 is, and 5, or rather 33, and then 35 is more sort of a like how, or using what resources to do that. Yeah, I wonder if there is any potential to institute some sort of either a local requirement or a local mandate for such education. That might not fly, but what do you guys think about that?
I mean, I love the idea, but I'm trying to think about how like contractors who've been doing this for 30 or 40 years are gonna feel about being required to do something.
Yeah, I know. That's like when you can get a contractor's license and never do, 5 minutes of continuing education for the rest of your career, right?
Yeah.
Bit of a
One thing
challenge.
I'm not sure if this fits into workforce, but we don't have anything really about kind of a buy local, in the local economy type of thing, in terms of if we had contractors from the South Bay coming up here and take advantage, I think we'll get a lot more buy-in if we can show that we're trying to really benefit our local contractors.
Okay, let's see.
Don't know.
Okay, I just added that to line 33 because that's sort of a specific type of incentive. I think that's a great idea. Yeah, and so Jane, I mean, right now the county has the contractor listings, but I feel like that's sort of not that well known. And I wonder if there's a way to sort of enhance that and, really make it kind of a co-op advertising type of opportunity. thoughts
Uh,
on that?
A participating contractor list with Skype financing, you mean?
Right.
Yeah, it's yeah, the only thing is the caveat with that associated to government is we can't refer or recommend. It's an impartial list.
Mhm.
But people can access the entire thing and filter it down. And we do have the local filter on there because we do have the local requirement.
Mhm.
People don't have to go with a local contractor, but if they do bring in a bid from somebody that's not local, they've got to go out and get a local one. And it's really then their decision as to who they want to use.
Mhm.
But from that, I mean, over 90% of the projects that are financed are done with local contractors.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I
And
wonder
that
if
was
there's.
something the board of supervisors put that local provision in place.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so I wonder if there's
As
some way to sort
workforce.
of, yeah, leverage that as a more,
Mhm.
you know, something that just make more of it in terms of promotion.
Right. Sure. I mean, we try and promote that as much as possible whenever. I mean, there's a marketing and a lead generation benefit for contractors there, and access to marketing materials and um, so
Bayron and Sonoma Clean Power also have their lists, and with Bayron, you have to go through that. Somebody on their list to get the incentives. I'm not sure if that's the case with
it used
SEI.
to be with Sonoma Clean Power, but they've
they
opened
changed.
that up. So I don't think they actually require a participating contractor per se for Sonoma Clean Power anymore. I think it's just they opened that one up to be a little broader.
Yeah,
Okay.
they do have a list, but you're right, they don't require.
But there's an interesting role to be played, even consolidating these lists, because there are contractors that may be on one or the other. But I do not know of anybody who's kind of producing a comprehensive list.
Okay.
Oh, that's an idea. I don't know if this is workforce or education, but yeah, some kind, how there's like a diamond certified.
Diamond certified, uh-huh.
Yeah, like some kind of our CPA certified contractors or something, like contractors that specifically do things that changes that we want to be making.
Okay. Yeah, so those are all, one way or another to incentivize the education. Here's another place where sort of case studies might be used.
It may be another opportunity so I'm thinking about the Next Gen Trades Academy that we talked about earlier. That one of the sort of big dangers in our future is that nobody wants to do manual labor.
Trades. Yeah.
Do the trades. They, everybody wants to be an influencer or whatever. Just something about ensuring that we actually have people. And so I don't know if that's a K-12 kind of thing or a JC kind of thing where we, there's some kind of education about green jobs or green, trades jobs. I mean, electricians are going to be super, super important in the future, and they're just so hard to find already.
Yeah. Yeah, well, there's also, so Next Gen K-12, I'm going to put and above. Yeah. And there's a program I've been working on with 3C Ren for the last couple of years is been also sort of addressing the kind of perception component of that problem. And we've just launched a certificate program to give a little more credibility and weight to somebody who's completed a series of 6 high performance building education programs, so that they can have something to, show an employer that says, yeah, so I'm coming in with some knowledge about the 21st century high performance workforce.
And once you get that one, I want to do a time check and make sure we get to the last category.
Yep. Yeah, I think I'm about to leave this one. Let's see.
I mean, for that matter, you could apply that to contractors, like something they can put on their website that says green certified or whatever.
Exactly. Okay, yeah, so let's scroll. Oh, that was that one. So we go over to this column. We're going to hide this one. Is A showing? No, okay. Okay.
Thank you for taking the lead on this, Ann.
Oh, sure, no problem. I spend half my life in spreadsheets, so this is my my native tongue. Okay, so local government. Yeah, see, we've got the permitting thing here.
Mm.
So we'll probably end up reshuffling these to make sure we've got everything in the right category. We don't have to worry about it this moment. So BC, I had a question about 13. This you meant for municipal buildings, right?
I think the original intent of that may have actually been around either municipal buildings or just relaxing permit requirements or making sure that local permit requirements allow the use of those materials.
Ah, interesting. Okay, so.
And I'm reading into it what the intent was. I do not remember
Okay.
where that, I think that had originally come from Sonoma Clean Power, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Okay, I just add a little bit of color to that one.
Not on line 17.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure RCPA will be the best vehicle for this. Seems like the county is already doing quite a bit of this, and it might be best to maximize their efforts.
And I guess one reaction that I'm having to this list, kind of try to think of resident of the county looking at a revenue measure and funding for local government versus funding for a solution. And so, rather than saying a local government agency would be the clearinghouse, we need a clearinghouse, and who does it can be figured out, but we don't, identify this funding is going to go to local government, because I think it would be more effective to say it's going to a particular solution, and then how that solution gets implemented is figured out behind the scenes. So I don't know if that
No, good
resonates
good
with
point
anyone
on the
else, but it's like we
optics.
have a mix of things on here. It's like community resilience centers. That's great. So that's like an end result or a solution versus electrifying municipal buildings, for example.
So do you think, Tanya, it might make sense to change this section caption to community scale solutions?
That might be more compelling. I don't know. That certainly captures some of the items that are on this list, for sure.
Yeah, great, catch on the optics.
The 13, it says for both municipal buildings, new and retrofit and new development projects, but also that would be like retrofitting.
Yeah, good point.
There we go. So if this is community scale, is this somewhere to put microgrids?
Yeah, we have that. That's on 10.
Oh, okay, I missed it.
But do we need to say more about that?
I don't think so. I mean, unless you want to put utility in there, that's differently, like utility scale.
Again, I don't know.
Maybe community solar instead of microgrids,
Okay,
or a slash.
okay, yeah.
Microgrids is one of those words that I find sometimes problematic, because it can be as small as a single building, or
Yeah.
it could be as large as an entire section of a whole city. So
Might be better to separate the lines there for that intention.
Sorry, well,
and I think by
didn't-
raising that, I'm just saying this will need some ongoing wordsmithing. We may not get this completely correct tonight, but microgrid
for
is one of those
sure.
great concepts that is so broad.
No, it's true. But I think it's actually appropriate here because we don't know what scale. I mean, it could be at the scale of an individual building in a particular case, and it could be a neighborhood. So.
I guess I'm concerned that it's spelling out critical facilities and key municipal buildings, but if we're really trying to transition areas off of gas, it's a different thing. It's neighborhoods.
So I just changed it to critical needs / facilities, maybe / areas. How about that?
That's good.
A little vaguer. Okay, let's scroll down to our last category. And obviously anything that crops up for you guys that's anywhere else, feel free to say, but just to make sure we get through this last one, and then we'll leave just a few minutes for our final wrap up. This one's short because it's really kind of an overlay on all of the others, but just so that we constantly remind ourselves of this lens.
And there there has been, and I think will continue to be, an ongoing debate as to how much to separate out social equity items like this list does versus having them be truly integrated with the other lists.
Right.
So there is a play there, and I have them separated out now, but there's good reasons to integrate them and actually get rid of a category like this.
Yeah.
Could we,
Yeah,
on
I know.
34, I know it's pretty vague, but in making upgrades, is that energy efficiency? Is that electrification? Is it what kind of upgrades? I think maybe define that, because we've added solar on there.
Why don't we say improvements per other categories?
Okay.
So it's inclusive of basically everything that's elsewhere in the table. Does that work, Jane?
Yes, I think, yeah.
So that would include like EV access and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to see this sort of visually represented, kind of literally an umbrella showing, equity overlaying everything. And I know, for example, a lot of state programs right now, every sort of bucket of money has 40% earmarked for disadvantaged communities, for example. So I think, we could do something similar and say, whatever these, sort of specific programs are, each one of them, we have to have a significant percentage allocated or using equity filters, something like that. Okay, let's leave this for now, and we've got 5 minutes for a wrap up. BC, are you able to bring up the agenda again? If not, I can probably find it.
I should not even try at this late moment.
Okay, let me take a look. I think I had it. Oh, voila, how about that? Okay, so we did a really good job.
It actually did not switch on my view.
Oh, it didn't?
Yeah, I still see the spreadsheet.
Okay, here, let me do this. Screen sharing. Let's see, I'm going to stop it for a second and then I'll do it again. And that should allow me to, there we go. Okay.
There it is.
Yeah, cool. And I can make it a little bigger if I uncover this and go to, all right. Okay, so any announcements?
I will say we've got almost 90 folks registered
Wow.
for the meeting in April, and
That's
or
great.
on the 19th. So hopefully we'll get some more folks interested in the committees as well through that.
Great.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's really good news. Okay, action items. BC, do you have a to-do list for us?
I think a lot of the action items, well, as far as specific committee members, I think the input tonight has been really what we were looking for. As far as other action items that need to be taken care of in the next week, we're going to review this list, and I think it would be Tanya, Ross, and I working with you, Anne, and with Panama to make sure that the items that you feel are most high priority are brought on to the draft slides that I've started. I mean, at this point, in the very short term, it's really about preparing materials for that, the meeting on the 19th. And then secondarily to that is working through the stakeholder outreach list and identifying areas, additional contacts that need to be made.
Sounds good. Does anything occur to any of the rest of you that you'd like to add on anybody's to-do list? Who wants to assign something to somebody else or themselves? Seeing no hands, I think we can call it a wrap for this evening. We are adjourned. Thank you so much.
Very good.
Thanks,
Great,
everyone.
Thank you,
input
everyone.
tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah,
All
very good.
right.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.